Hi guys, I'm here with Chelsea today, and she's going to tell us a little bit about social and emotional cognition.
Yeah.
Cool.
So my name is Chelsea, as Sarah said. I just finished my PhD at the University of Minnesota in child psychology. So for the last 5 years, I've spent a lot of time, studying how kids think about the world, and in particular, how they think about the social world and how social information can sort of impact their thinking. Two sort of big areas that I've looked at in my research are social information processing and intergroup cognition. Big words.
Whoa.
What does that mean? So a lot of research has looked at how social groups and social group information, whether it's gender, race, age, or groups that are created artificially, like colored t-shirts, which we do in our research, how those kinds of groups can impact how kids think about the world. So the other piece is social information processing. So this area in particular has been really prevalent in terms of looking at kids who engage in aggression, whether that's physically aggressive, punching and hitting, or if that's relationally aggressive, spreading rumors about people, that kind of thing. So what research has found is that kids who engage in those kinds of behaviors tend to show a hostile attribution bias. So another big word, lots of terms. Basically what that means is that when these kids who engage in aggression encounter situations that are a little ambiguous, it's unclear what a person's intention is, they're much more likely to think that that person is doing something intentionally and then react with an aggressive response.
So if you had like two kids walking down the hallway or something and one bumped into the other, the kid who has a higher hostile attribution bias might do what?
They are going to be more likely to think that the kid bumped into them on purpose, and then perhaps react with an aggressive response, whether that's hitting the kid back or, saying something nasty, calling them a name, things like that. Versus a child who does not display a hostile attribution bias is much more likely to give the child the benefit of the doubt and assume that, maybe he tripped or maybe he just didn't see me when he bumped into me.
So historically, what kind of research has been done in these areas?
In the early 1970s, a researcher named Henry Tajfel did a classic research study that looked at group bias in a group of adolescent boys. So he took the boys, divided them into social groups, and then had them distribute resources to the various groups. So they could either give resources to the in-group or to the out-group. And here the resources were money. So what the researchers found was that kids were much more likely to give those resources to the in-group member at the expense of the out-group member, even when the groups held no status value. So there wasn't one group that was, necessarily better than the other. And even when the kids themselves wouldn't benefit from those added resources. So they weren't going to get any of the money. It was just being distributed to the in-group as a whole. That started sort of a whole big wave of research that has continued till today, where people look at, in even younger groups, how can we look at this sort of minimal group bias using this minimal group paradigm, where we put kids into these arbitrarily created groups that don't have any basis in natural groups we see every day, like gender or race, things like that. So a lot of research has used this minimal group paradigm to look at these kinds of biases in young children. After we put kids into the colored t-shirts, say the kids in the red group, they will share more with other people in the red group. They will like the people in the red group more. They will want to learn from them. They will remember more from them without any additional information besides just group status. So it really is a very strong phenomenon that we see in early childhood using this paradigm.
So I'm curious, given that we have these sort of real groups that exist in our world based on gender and age and race and sexuality, what do we know about how groups kind of view each other, and why is this kind of research really helpful in figuring that kind of thing out?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that makes this kind of research really important, and I think that's why it's really sort of become a popular topic right now to look at these minimal group biases in children in particular. It's very easy to think, okay, so you put kids in colored t-shirts and they tend to like the person in the same color shirt a little more than the person in the different color shirt. What does that matter? Who cares? What's the bigger picture here? But I think that it is really important because it does give us insight into sort of those underpinnings of more negative aspects of our society, like stereotyping, prejudice, racism, things like that. Is that tapping into some, really deep part of our psychology in terms of that, us versus them thinking? Where does that come from? One thing that people have even talked about with this work is thinking about this as sort of something that's developed evolutionarily. Some researchers have looked at that group bias in non-human primates, finding that they will be more vigilant towards members of the out-group versus members of the in-group, members of, their own group that they're more familiar with. When you think about it evolutionarily, you're encountering someone from another group, it would make more sense to be a little more vigilant towards them before you really know what their intentions are. So when you think about that being linked to this minimal group bias that we display now, it makes a lot of sense maybe where it comes from.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing here, is just, getting a better understanding of where these biases come from, and perhaps even using some of this research to inform interventions that might target, racism and prejudice. Having a better understanding of those more subtle aspects can maybe help us better eliminate them in our society.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea, for talking to me today about your really interesting research.
Thank you.
If you are interested in talking to Chelsea more about her work, you can find her on Twitter at
Dr. Hetherington.
Yay! I'll put a link in the description to her Twitter as well. Thank you for watching. If you have other questions about Chelsea's research or about any of the things we've talked about today, leave them below in comments. Hope you have a lovely day. Thanks for watching. Like it if you like it. Give us a subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.